We have to ask ourselves, in this time when Iraq is under siege again, when the ISIS terrorist groups of Islamist jihadists who want to take over Syria and Iraq and form a new caliphate that extends across the Middle East, you have to ask how it is that when they invaded this group, who I heard was only 1,500, maybe it was 3,000 or 5,000, doesn't matter, when this group of terrorists, who are heavily armed, but they invaded a town where there was supposed to be, I think, 20 or 30 or 50,000 soldiers guarding it that were part of the Iraqi army, and this army dropped their weapons and fled. Why? A very strange business, because the army was Shiite, and the invaders, a lot of them were Sunnis who hated the Shiites because the Sunnis had run the country under Saddam al-Hussein and had tormented the Shiites, and now the Shiites were busy getting even, which didn't make for stability in the country, of course. Very foolish. Well, that was Malachi for 8 years. What do you expect? It was a corrupt government. It is a corrupt government, and that's the way.
Oh no, that's the way to the cliffs.
Yeah, so that you say, what could have happened that enabled this relatively small group of ISIS and affiliates, Sunnis, to invade these various towns in Iraq, especially the big one, Mosul, and I think several others, Fallujah, places where American soldiers died to kill the Taliban and to free the country, and the army had no morale. There had to be reasons for that, and I think part of it was the corruption of the government under Malachi, where instead of making peace with the Sunnis who had ruled the country, they were busy persecuting them. They were busy stealing the money as usual for Malachi and his corrupt friends, stashing it away probably in Swiss or other banks, offshore or whatever, wherever you put your money to hide it. And instead of the army being well taken care of, the Americans did a great job of training it, I'm sure, but these people had no real reason to fight. Who were they fighting for? A cruel dictator who was busy enriching his friends and not taking care of them. So they didn't fight. Now it may be that as these people, this group, relatively small group, is approaching Iraq, approaching Baghdad, that Malachi has forces there that are well trained and well fed and well equipped, because certainly it has always been to his interest to protect Baghdad, even if the rest of the country goes to hell. Baghdad is a seat of power. And my guess is, the latest news is that they are already slowing down this advance towards Baghdad. Everybody thought Baghdad was lost, but they were a little bit premature. Obama, of course, frightened the hell out of the Islamists because he said, "We are considering all options, but you can be sure there will be no troops sent there." And he was asked, well, how about airstrikes? Can you do that right away? Oh, no, we can't do anything right away. We might injure some civilians. So he was asked, what happens if they take Baghdad? He said, well, that's probably not going to happen, and we're going to consider our options. In a few days, we'll give you some answers. That kind of leadership is what leads armies and nations into disaster. The fall of the Roman Empire, the collapse of every great nation in the past, every empire, Napoleon's empire, the British Empire. The sun never sets on the British flag. That was true at one time. Anywhere in the world during this flag was flying, so there was always sun on the British flag. They had conquered the world, at least as much of it as they wanted, because they had fleets, and they had the most powerful fleets in the world, because they were a small nation compared to some of the European nations, but they had the Navy. Now, we're back to what's happening in Iraq, and it doesn't look too good because Obama has made too many threats that he does not keep, drawn red lines that people cross, turned the United States into a paper tiger, and when confronted with the what seemed at the moment like the immediate collapse of all of Iraq's armed forces and the occupation of Baghdad, he said, we'll have to take a few days to think about this. I wouldn't want to have him as my doctor if I were dying. So that's the state of things today. And what I say to everybody is, keep laughing. Because if you look at foreign affairs, if you look at the behavior of our nation, the behavior of our leaders, the behavior of our Congress, it's a freak show. You know that God made this theater of the absurd to amuse himself. He watched it for a while and said it's not that interesting, and he went off to create some other galaxies. At least that's my opinion. So laugh at it, enjoy life, have a great weekend if that's what you're doing, and remember, the more you laugh, the more the gods will love you. I'm going to say a few words about the Odyssey and about the Greek writer Kazantzakis, who is much better known or well known for Zorba the Greek, but was a very great writer of other things that are much less known. He's also a highly religious man. He was once asked, as he was growing older, if he was ready to meet his maker, and Kazantzakis answered, "Of course I am, but I would like to take the longest road possible." And Kazantzakis wrote a book. He wrote a number of books. The one I like the best is called The Odyssey, a Modern Sequel. After Odysseus reaches Troy finally, slaughters the suitors, he decides to give the kingdom to his son and go out again with his sailors to sail the world, because he in the poem, which by the way is about 800 pages of poetry, fortunately translated by a very great English poet named Kimon, K-I-M-O-N, Fryer, who worked with Kazantzakis to translate the Greek into English so that the English version is a poem, not just a translation, a great poem. And Kazantzakis wrote this 800-page poem of Odysseus' later travels after Troy. He goes out and goes around the world, and many things happen. It is not the kind of poem, 800 pages of using some of the archaic Greek phraseology, which is translated into English in its own way, but it reads very well in English, but it is long and hard. It's the kind of book you should dip into, read 10 or 20 or 40 pages. I'm going to start reading it again. Every now and then I pick it up, because there are parts in it that are just marvelous. The opening lines I cannot recite, sadly, but it's a great introduction, because he's constantly dealing with the son that he gives Odysseus many names: castle wrecker, archer, whatever it is. He has probably 20. He has many names for the son as well, because he treats the son as a character who's very disappointed if bad things happen to Odysseus. So Odysseus goes out to travel the world with his crew and have many adventures, some of which are very strange. In addition, the language is magnificent. The descriptions of nature by Kazantzakis are among the best I have ever read anywhere. And other things in it, there are certain things, there's a passage that I like very much, and I will recount it for that reason, because I think it is so important of the great life, or the strenuous life, as Theodore Roosevelt called it, in which he writes that when death comes to take the castle wrecker, he will find nothing there to take, for he but dregs and flotsam. He has used it all up. I say that's the way to live. When death comes to take you, whenever it may be, there should be nothing there to take, because everything has been used up. Most people cannot live that way. Most people do not dare to live that way. Most people are concerned with their futures. How am I going to live later on? What happens when I have to stop working? Why should anyone stop working? You stop working and you die. You keep working, you'll live a hell of a lot longer, especially if you find something to work at that you love. But the idea that You shouldn't use everything up. You should save your money, give it to your grandchildren. Why? Are you trying to protect them from having to learn the hard way how to live, from growing and becoming entrepreneurs in their own right, artists, politicians, scientists, dancers, whatever it is they want to be? Use it up. You're here to experience the earth in all of its glory and all of its astonishing garb and beauty, Gaia, the Earth Mother. You're presented with paradise here. Don't wait for the one in heaven that may or may not exist. Use everything that you've got. Don't save a damn thing. And if you say, what'll I do if I run out of money? Earn some more. Or live off your relatives if you have to. But don't ever think that your job here on earth is to put things away for your future or for the future of your children and grandchildren. Much better for them to earn their own ways. Warren Buffett, in a way, is very odd in this regard. He doesn't give any of his money to his children. You say, my God, he's a multi-billionaire. He has $30 billion. Why doesn't he make their lives easy? Because he feels that would destroy them. And he's probably right. But they're already destroyed. You see, you cannot be the child of one of the richest men in the world who constantly, pompously recites what the world should do, what America should do, who thinks he is a god on this earth. If you're a child of that person, God help you. You'll be lucky to survive. You'll be lucky to do anything. The children of this kind of people very rarely make it in any way. So you have all of these things to consider. But the bottom line to this speech, which I'm going to end very shortly, is when death comes to take you, he should find nothing left to take. You've squandered it all because that's the way to live. Experience everything, spend everything. I have done it, and I'm proud of it. I've been all over the world a dozen times, 20 times, 50 times, traveled everywhere, risked my life everywhere, earned large sums of money, spent it, bought things, recreated the art of photography, did everything I could possibly imagine because I want to end if and when my life ends, and I hope it'll be another half a century, I want to say what the wonderful ballet dancer said at the end of the video about her, Susan Farrell. She said, there are no if-onlys in my life, and that's the way to live. Everybody, have a great time, and that's my advice for today.